was at Bowery Electric. No, it wasn't at Bowery Electric. That was where we saw Guy Pearce and
Guy Pearce.
Somebody was there. But anyway, welcome to Rock Pops. This is a podcast about two dads who are talking all things music, from listening to bands to being in bands. I'm Bill Gagliardi, and with me always is Joe Pecora. Joe, how are you today?
I am good. I am now remembering the Guy Pearce episode of the second show. Yeah, that was amazing. So I might as well just jump right in.
Yeah.
So we were at Bowery Electric?
That was right? Bowery Electric, yeah.
Right, and there was a bar on, which street was that? Was that 3rd Avenue?
I think so.
Right, okay.
Again, the city is, I know no geography whatsoever about, even on Staten Island, so. Right. We're from Staten Island. But,
oh, right, Staten Island. Yeah.
But, so we venture off into Manhattan once in a while. But anyway.
That was great. I remember we were sitting there at the bar. Who was with us? Was it... I don't know, but we're sitting at this bar. I remember it's like an Irish bar, and it's like 5 in the afternoon because we got there early for like load-in.
Yeah.
And we're sitting down having a drink, and in walks some guy with like, this over-the-top like garish like outfit. Remember he had like it was like a white
overcoat, right? Like
white overcoat, yeah. But it was like, I don't know, it was like fuzzy or whatever. And he had like weird glasses on, and he sat down right next to me at the bar, and he was trying to chat up the bartender, and it was like an Irish pub.
Yeah.
So the bartender had like a brogue, and this guy comes in and starts, like, you can tell he doesn't naturally have a brogue, and he's like putting it on and talking about Ireland with this guy. Like, he just comes in like all like douchey and like, and I've had a couple of beers. And
so you started speaking with a brogue too.
So I did too. I should have. But the only thing I could think of, I don't remember who was next to me. The only thing I could think of was just going like, I was like, oh my God, this guy's a fucking douche. I'm like, I can't, like, I can't stand. And the more beers I had, the angrier I got.
Then you're just like, holy shit, this is Guy Pearce.
I turned around, it's fucking Guy Pearce.
And I think around the time too, he was filming probably A King's Speech. So that's probably where the accent came from.
Interesting.
So
okay.
he was living as David, right? I don't know. This isn't a This isn't a British. This isn't the Crown podcast. So.
But that. Oh right, I remember that. That was really cool, and it unfortunately it tainted my view of Guy Pearce, like as an actor. Yeah. No, I mean I like watching him in movies. I really enjoy. What was it, like Memento and like L.A. Confidential. Like, he's always good in movies. He was really good in that Mar of Easttown. Did you see that?
That's the one with Kate Winslet, right?
Yeah, that's great. I think I'm probably saying the name wrong. I don't know if that's right. But it was fantastic, and he was really great and really understated. And I remember sitting there with my wife, Jen, and we're watching, and I'm like, oh, right. I met Guy Pearce once. He's a douche, but he's such a good actor.
That's why never meet your heroes.
No.
Never meet you. And I know that you were a huge fan. This guy you had.
Yeah, I love his third album. This is one of my favorites.
But that was kind of a star-studded event, because Janine even said she like walked outside and like Rosario Dawson was there, and like it's just a hopping place. There was like a restaurant out there, like where it was like kind of a celebrity hang and whatnot.
But we also we were playing before Drive-By Truckers.
That's right.
So they were playing later, much later in the set. I mean, when I say we played before, we played about 5 bands before.
But I mean, just keep in mind that 5 bands before, and this was always the experience for bands that Joe and I have played in. You have an audience of about 6 people, and most of them were like family members and friends.
Yeah, it's usually girlfriends and wives.
So that's why we remember this so greatly, because to have somebody who was, in movies, to be one of those 6 people, you might as well have had played in front of like 500.
Yeah, sure.
But why are we here today? So Joe and I have been playing in bands together for about over a decade now, and we thought we had a lot of inspirations and history together, so we wanted to start talking about it and get it out to whoever would want to listen to it. So of our group of friends, of our social circle, we are the first to become dads, and it's such a huge culture shock between playing in bands, going out to shows, living that type of lifestyle, which I think that we've lived modestly too, like nothing lavish or, not really big into like parties or whatnot, but to go from that to, being a parent is the complete opposite. So it really is kind of a check to see where we are, reminiscing about a lot of fun things in bands that we still do. And that's it.
And also, I think we're pretty good music nerds too.
Oh, huge music nerds.
Yeah, just I can't describe how much music has influenced my life and in many ways almost ruined my life, but also has fulfilled it so much.
Yeah.
So we get to nerd out about music and hopefully talk about some like bands that nobody would ever hear of.
Absolutely.
Or, some albums, even by people who would probably not be heard by much of the public anyway.
Yeah.
And let's have some fun.
Well, I guess the first question I have is, who are you, Joe Pecora? Like, where do you come from? What got you into music, and what brought you to the microphone today?
I have no idea, Bill. That's a really big question. I think what I really think, and I noticed this. So I'm going to bring the dad thing into it immediately. So I noticed it with my daughter that she has, she's very smart, much smarter than me. She's a really intelligent kid, but she has a lot of things going on in her head all the time. And I realized that I was like that as a kid too, my brain's all over the place, and I had a hard time focusing. And the thing that used to sort things out for me and occupy my focus my energies was music. I would just sit in front of my parents' stereo. They had records, a whole bunch of stuff, or just turn on a radio station and play with G.I. Joes in front of a radio, or sing, and that was what I did. So yeah. I think when I really think of it, music is really just the thing that helps me think straight. Not only does it entertain me, and it's also a way for me to express myself, because a lot of times I feel like I'm not so good at really explaining what I mean. But with music, I can kind of do it in abstract terms, and the world makes a lot more sense to me. So that's the long answer of it. How about you, Bill?
Oh, me. I'm almost the same way. Going back to, you said you got your daughters into this. You're actually celebrating their curiosity towards it. I have two sons. They're very much into it. If you look around, we're recording this in my house right now. They have a lot of toy instruments. It's something that I'm not pointing them in that direction, but they're just kind of finding it on their own. They just individually got into the Beatles by themselves and everything. I think I'm in the same boat as you. As far as music was the thing that always gave me joy. It was the thing I daydreamed about in school.
Yeah.
It's something that is completely different than a lot of our peers. Not so much yours and mine directly, but where we live in Staten Island is very civil service oriented. A lot of cops and firefighters here, so it's kind of a different type of lifestyle. Joe comes from a firefighter family, so do I, and I was just really fortunate that not only was my family part of that culture, but I had an uncle who unfortunately just recently passed away, but he was a huge...
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you. He was a huge influence. When I was sick, when I was 2 years old, had a stomach virus, he came over. My dad had a huge Beatles anthology book on piano, and he was just playing songs on the piano, and I felt immediately better. And then from that point on, I picked up piano and then got really into it. And that was kind of the driving force to why I kept playing music. But the reason why I brought up the whole thing of where we live is primarily cops and firefighters is our direct peers all come from those types of families, but something always channeled them to art or to music. And a lot of those people we've become lifetime friends with. people that like I know from high school, you know from high school. We all had bands together growing up, and a lot of those bands, in one way or another, are still around. I'm going to point out the elephant in the room. Joe and I are both in a band that some of you are familiar with called Red Vox. Vin and I met in high school, and we stayed in touch this whole time just through our love of music. So you saying that you identify with that like you found different bands that not many people would know about, that's kind of why I wanted to do this. Because it's you and I feel are in a band where people have an individuality with it, where like they have kind of ownership of it.
Right.
So I identify with that a lot. There's a lot of bands where I found where I only know one or two people that I've built complete relationships with because they have a love of the same band, where you'd go like to the next person over from them and they know nothing about it. So that's what brought me here.
Interesting. I want to take it back. Like, this is going to be completely I'm taking just one section of what you just said. Do you remember any of those daydreams you had about music?
Yeah, it was all about just concerts.
Right.
I just
that's what I want. I want a specific one. What do you? Because I have a bunch.
I don't know. They still happen. Like I would just sit in math class, which I was always terrible at, and even like when I was in 8th grade, I was writing songs. So it would just be whatever set list that I would have, and I'm like, oh no, this song, Villain wouldn't be good there. I would have to do Hanging Up the Cape there or something. No, because it's in a different key.
But they were all your songs, or would they be like you like? Because in my fantasy, sometimes, like myself, they would be like I was a member of like 1,000 bands, and I was like I play this song and I play that song. So what did you have like any? What was like? What can you remember like a grand?
Well, okay. Even better than that, when I was in junior high, my brother was playing in bands, and me like sitting in on one practice would mean that I was like officially in the band, which it was just like, just like throw your little brother a bone, let him like play a little keyboard or something like that. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely in this band now. So like I was putting together my brother's set list, and he thought it was like the biggest thing in the world, and they're playing at like some dive bar and stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, and as big as he thought it was, I'm thinking like he's playing MSG. Right, so right. I got like the whole like, introducing Ineffable Me, which was his band was Ineffable Me at the time. So and then I get lost in this, and then failed math. So
that's funny. I real like. That's funny you say that, because I think about that a lot. My cousin Anthony was in a band. He played keyboards, and it's like the 80s, and it's very much like that crossover, like pop rock prog kind of band. Like one of his favorite bands was a band called Marillion. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
Okay. Well, you know what? We should listen to
We're going to do an episode of Marillion now.
But I remember like, he had, I remember seeing him go to shows, and he had like all his cool keyboards and stuff, and he had his like leather jacket, but he was totally not like a cool guy. Right. But he's, I loved him. My cousin was great. And he, I remember thinking like, oh, he's going to play this bar. Like, you go play a bar, it's like a concert, like you're saying. Like, you're playing, and like everybody there is watching you. Yeah. Fast forward 20, 30 years, and you realize that playing in a bar is usually you playing to the old drunk that always comes to the bar, who just screams at you, like, free bird, or whatever, like any of that garbage. And it's funny, my daughters think when they talk about like concerts, or like, I'm like, okay, go ahead, put on a concert, and to them it's the same thing. It's like there's the big announcer, now introducing, yeah, and like, have you ever had any moment like that, like in real life?
Real life?
Yeah.
Very, very little. Like one battle of the bands with Hollywood Hangover. Hollywood Hangover was like a kind of like neo rock / cover band that I was in back in college. we played some showcases that were kind of like that, but nothing. Like nobody knew who we were. Like you got a hype man who's
Sure.
Oh, and also we had one friend in high school who was an MC for a ballad of bands and introduced everybody like that. And it was actually one of my first official shows. And
where was that?
This was at Farrell.
I was at Farrell.
Yeah.
You said that, sorry.
So, and this was the band we had with like Imbergio and all those other guys.
Was that Lafayette?
No, this was Furthermore.
Furthermore.
And we'll go in more episodes about our past bands, but we had somebody introduce, and yeah, it seemed larger than life. But as far as legit stuff, no. But to go back into the bars scene,
yes,
I remember like I was a freshman in high school. My brother was a freshman in college at the time, so I went up there. I visited him for the weekend, and neither of us are old enough to be in a bar, but he had a fake ID. I didn't, but he said he introduced me as his older brother. I was already 6 feet at 14. He's like, just like sucking your cheeks so you get rid of your baby fat and wear glasses or something. It worked. I don't know why, but they were like, "Oh, Bill, go over to the keyboard and play with the house band and stuff." There was exactly that. There was like the 6 drunk people there. We did play Freebird,
right? That's why they were so happy.
Like it meant so much. I'm still talking about it today. Like
was that your first
live performance?
Yeah.
I mean, other than, I think it might have been. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. It made me think of so. When I was a kid, I'm a little older than Bill, but when I was a kid, like it was still cool for parents to like, oh well, we're gonna go out with the neighbor's parent, we're gonna go out with the neighbors, and you kids are okay all by yourselves, and leaving like a 14 to 15-year-old in charge of like all the kids in the neighborhood.
Yes. No. That.
So, we across the street from me was this kid, Ronnie, and he was the youngest of like 3 boys, and so they all the parents on the block went out to dinner and for drinks someplace, so nobody was home. So of course Ronnie threw like a huge keg party.
Yeah.
So
Ronnie's cool.
Yeah, Ronnie's cool. Ronnie's 15. And Ronnie's 15, and now that I think, I didn't know at the time because I was like 10, but he's the stoner, cool kid in the neighborhood. That was that house. So he has a party there, and he has a band. And the band shows up, and there was only 2 guys in the band because everybody else couldn't make it. They didn't have their singer. They didn't have a bass player. So my brother, John, who is older, he's 6 years older than me, wants to go to the party, so he has to take me with him.
Yeah. Awesome.
Right, yeah. So I went, 10 years old, I'm hanging out at this party, and I am enthralled with the band. There's like everybody else is doing all manners of all crazy shit around the house, and I am like, oh my God, the band is awesome. And I'm just sitting there in front of these 2 guys, like when they probably sucked ass. Like it was probably terrible. But I thought they were great. And I was just waiting for them to go, hey man, you want to sing a song? Like they were going to look at this kid sitting there like the plucky young kid who comes up and wows everybody. And so at the time I really loved The Who. The Who was like, The Who and AC/DC were like my favorite bands when I was a kid, and Iron Maiden. And they, so I asked them, do you know Pinball Wizard? And they said, yeah, I guess. And they just like badly played it, and I sang Pinball Wizard. And these...
Oh, you actually got up there.
I did. I got up there, and I sang, Bill. It was the biggest moment of my life. And there was like 14-year-old and 15-year-old girls, older women who were sitting around watching me, and they were like, oh, that's so cute, oh, blah, blah, blah. And they hung out with me, and I thought I was the coolest guy in the world.
And you were like, oh man, I'm gonna kiss tonight.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kiss.
I'm totally going to hold hands with this girl.
Oh, man.
So the funny thing, the addendum to that story is afterwards, my brother the whole time didn't give a crap. He's over there, he's talking to like girls and friends, and they're all drinking beer and stuff. And I go over and sit down with my brother afterwards. He's like, yeah, that was great. Here, hold this. And he gives me his beer, and he just disappears with a girl somewhere.
Yeah.
And of course, what every responsible 15 and 16-year-old does when a 10-year-old is holding a beer is go, chug, chug, chug. So I drank, I think I got drunk my first time, right? I sang in front of a band, had girls say, "Oh, that was great," and got drunk at 10 years old.
I mean,
that's child abuse now, but
yeah. No, I waited at least until I was 12, but almost same situation. I mean, but my brother's 4. Like he was still 16, so
Right.
I was living vicariously through a 16-year-old as a 12-year-old. But I didn't get to play any cool music and stuff. But that fantasy that you had, that you fulfilled, like I had that 6 years ago, or like I was already playing in bands that like had followings.
You were a grown up.
No, but like there was this band. They're still playing. They're actually pretty big. It's Jukebox the Ghost. They have no bassist, right? In a couple of bands I played bass, primarily a keyboardist, but so they had this thing where they said, write us why you're a fan. Like, send us an email, and we'll give you free tickets to a show. So I said this whole thing, like, my wife and I saw you opening up for Ben Folds. We really loved you. I was in a band before where it was just piano and drums, so, like, we didn't have a bass either. But, like, sometimes I play bass along to your songs. You see where this is going, wow. Right? So I was like, there's one song in particular that you guys play great, and I really love it, and I play it all the time, and I fill in all those spots and stuff. And they say, great. You could come to the show, you have free tickets to the show. So I'm like, oh man, they're going to call me up on stage to be like, play with us. I didn't go to the show. So I don't, maybe it had, no, it definitely didn't. They got a whole set. They can't take that risk.
You didn't go to the show.
No, I didn't go to the show. You know how many tickets to shows that I have bought that I did not attend?
Really?
So many. So many.
Is why is that? Is that like things come up, or is it just like the night of, you're like, I'm not going out?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's the latter. Like I have spent over $1,500 on tickets.
On
like
used tickets.
We're talking of Monsters and Men, All Points of Westfest, where I think like
wow.
Coldplay and Radiohead were playing, bigger shows. So we haven't been to a show because COVID's been going on for 2 years, but now Janine and I have bought tickets to about 5 shows this year. I really hope that we go to see them all. We're going to Beach Bunny, Kishibashi.
I don't know any of these bands.
Kishibashi's he was the violin player from Montreal.
Oh, okay.
Really, really good. I'll do a show and tell on him one time. Who else? We're doing Elton John. We're doing Cigarro.
Oh, cool.
They're coming around in June. I don't know when we're going to air these, but you guys should check it out. I think we're doing like one more, too. We might be doing Spoon. I don't know. But they just came out with an album.
Spoon's a good show.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But, yeah, we're really excited. We're really just trying to go out there now and follow up on our, the tickets that we spent a lot of money on.
Yeah.
So...
Well, yeah, man. Definitely go. Force yourself to go. I know it's tough. It's hard, especially like parent-wise. You're like, you're done. Like by the end of the night, you're like done. And the idea of going out, and I know you, and like I know myself personally, we love our kids.
Yeah.
I love hanging out with my kids. I love doing all that. So like the drive to go out isn't really there as much. It's like I really enjoy hanging out with my wife on the couch, or hanging out
for
with
the
kids.
20 minutes after the kids are asleep, and
right.
then you pass out.
Right. And yeah, so like, but you have to like force yourself to go.
But keep that in mind. This podcast was supposed to come out probably a year or two ago, but to those of you who don't have kids, it's to have anything after nap time or bedtime it's amazing that we're both still awake right now. And that's part of the factor into this. It is a goddamn miracle that we're still being cool.
Well, the recording thing helps to keep me cool at late night.
Yeah.
As far as but my nights are a lot earlier than they used to be.
But it's a motivation though, like where I took that for granted, where it's like, I'm not going to go out, I'm not going to go see this show. But now it's like, oh, you grab onto those, like, oh, I got a sitter, so like let's go and do this really cool thing too.
Yeah. Do you?
But
so
I'm doing really cool things, like I go to Liberty Science Center, and like I went to a place today with my kids where there's they have like Mario Kart arcade games and shit.
Where was this?
It was in Jersey. It was like kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese type place, but
they had some cool games there.
Yeah, it was like a Chuck E. Cheese meets a Dave and Buster's, but so you just find really fun stuff in other ways.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but there is something cool about like going back to a show, like to remembering you as an individual.
Yeah,
which is nice.
Yes.
We you know what we saw the other? Oh, we went to go see Ween.
Oh, did you go with Joe?
Yeah, it was me, Jen, Vert, Joe. These are all people that none of you guys know. But anyway, we went with a whole bunch of people.
But if they listen to this, they're gonna love it because it's just like you're doing a shout out. We went to the show, and I have to admit, this is like my third time seeing Ween, and like the first two times I wasn't really a fan, and then I became a fan after, and then now that I'm a fan and I watch them, like it's not like the most interesting show in the world. Their albums are awesome. Their albums are like weird and cool and fun, and the songs are cool, and the production aspect of their albums is a big part of their sound and their allure and everything. And live, it's just like a bar rock band. Yeah,
it doesn't translate. The same thing that you hear in the albums does not translate, which usually I'm okay with. Usually I'm here for the moment. I don't want to see a band recreate an album.
No,
I want to experience a new moment right there in time.
Yeah.
But
songs might sound different, you know, like you want that rawness to it.
Yeah, or I want the aspect of a couple of human beings playing music together.
Yeah,
and their whatever variations that makes. But it didn't work with Ween. It doesn't work, and that's the third time I've seen them, and it doesn't work.
Which is weird because Ween is very much like a dive bar band. I mean, we played at one of the like Ween's like hotspots, didn't we?
Yeah, but. Well, because what do you call
New Hope?
Yeah, Dean Ween owns it.
Oh,
it's Peter and John's.
Peter and John's,
right.
Yeah, or John and Peter's.
John and Peter's.
Yeah,
whatever. But their albums are very much produced, even for the crappier early ones, which aren't crappy. They're like this like very punky but weird and funny.
Yeah,
and then they get like more elaborate and that gets lost in the live show.
Yeah.
Also. One of the big things is Gene Ween's like either pitched up or pitched down vocals, which happens a lot.
Yeah,
on the albums, it's hard to recreate that live.
Yeah, especially like when you're getting older, like.
But even I saw him like the first time I saw him was maybe like almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, and still like,
it was the same show, the same thing.
Oh,
they have a zillion songs.
Yeah.
So where are we? Let's go. I'll try to steer us. Let's steer us back into where we were going.
Well, no, we were talking about. Now we're going into the Ween episode.
But how about let's just talk. I mean, we're just talking about music in general, right?
Yeah.
Bands and shows. So what? Okay. Your bar shows. Can you remember your worst show? Like, what was the best for you? What's the best and worst thing about being in bands for like 20-something years,
right?
And like the cool. I think the cool thing about our perspective on this is we never made it. No, right? Yeah, right. But this is cool. So, but what's the aspect of what is the thing that drove us? Like, what's the allure of being in bands for this long?
It's really the energy. The band that you and I have spent the longest time in, which was the Seconds, like really reignited the joy of playing live that I had back in high school. In that band, which we will talk about much later on in great detail. When I met with Joe, I was recording a solo album. Well, I was in a band that we were very much like a strict cover band, but like also like everything had to be played to the T, and like the levels had to be right, and like everything had to be perfect. Where once we started playing together, it was just like have fun, like we would Monday morning quarterback like every single show that we had with the band I had before that, where like, okay, how could we make this better? How could we make that better? And then I would walk up the stage with the seconds, and it'd just be like, I'd be sweating. My ears would just be ringing loud, and it's just, it was just fun, like, and that is the joy that I had in playing live. Now, what was the best first? What was the worst? Or was that what you were asking? Or
I mean, I started there, but I think I'm also like, I'm thinking of what drives that. I mean, because you have these awful shows.
Yeah.
You have awful shows, and then you have like really fantastic shows. But I think what drives you to keep doing it? Is it the feeling like, oh, one day I'm going to be as big as blah, blah, blah?
That used to be the case. That was the case, I don't know, 15 years ago maybe. But
that was Hollywood Hangover?
Yeah, Hollywood Hangover, we were going for it.
Right.
I think you and I were both in bands at the time where it was like we are campaigning ourselves. We got our press kits ready, and have managers and people representing us. But why is it fun? It's just you're doing something that you love more than anything in the world. Like you're putting yourself out there, something that like you've practiced ever since you were a little kid, and you're getting instant feedback too. Even the person who like is there and who's like heckling you, you're getting a reaction for the thing that you're doing. But I don't know about playing solo, like as far as like being the one person on stage. It evolved from playing in front of people to just playing with people. Like during the pandemic, and also like just work and family and everything like that, our time now is really limited with playing together. So Joe and I played about a week or two ago for the first time in about 6 months. And regardless of how good or bad it was, just to play with other people is the reason why I still do it. Like, just to like share and even connect, even a bad jam, like at one point we're going to connect. The time before that, we were playing with my brother. My brother didn't play in 20 years.
Right.
And he was very, very rocky. And it sounds like a criticism, but after a while, he started gelling. It started feeling really good. And his whole mood for like weeks after that, like, was just completely changed, just because like he got to share what he loved with other people and got feedback from it, like hearing other people like bounce off of him.
Right.
So I don't know. That's
cool.
That's what keeps me coming back.
That's a good explanation of it. I think that there's like a weird kind of, I guess it goes back to what I was saying before about that, like sorting your brain out or whatever. There's a certain kind of aspect that of human beings making music together. For certain kinds of human beings, it's not everybody. It's not everybody that needs that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that there is a yeah, of course, when you're a kid or when you're younger, the idea is, oh, I'm going to do this, and you want the stardom, you want the attention, you want that validation from other human beings that you did something and everyone clapped.
Yeah.
But in reality, like, if that was all it was, you would do 2 shows and never do it again.
Yeah.
You would, like, by the second show, after the first show, after your family showed up and like was like, okay, that was really great, even though they don't like it.
Yeah.
And then you do the second show, and now you're doing it to people you don't know, and none of them clap. You would stop doing it. But the thing that I think keeps it going is the feeling that there is some kind of certain kind of psychological kind of thing of a connection somewhere with either the audience or the other people you're playing with that you really need for yourself personally.
You're doing a nonverbal connection with somebody who has similar interests to you that not the majority of people have the same interest.
Right.
You know, like it takes skill. It takes a certain skill, or it doesn't. Like you don't have to be skilled to do it.
No.
Like
you know what? A good example of this is the Red Room jams of like maybe like 7 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So I run a studio called Red Room Studio in Staten Island, and it used to be right next door to a bar that had bands, and it was like the place for bands to play on Staten Island who were playing original songs. And I was the sound guy there. So what I would do is, after a show was over, like 1 o'clock in the morning, I'd invite whoever was around that played instruments to come jam in the studio, and we would just play all night.
Yeah.
But the rule was that you only got to play the instrument that you play for 10 minutes. And then you had a shift. And it was a mess.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter. Everybody was drunk or high or whatever they were. But it was a mess. But there were moments where it really connected. And it didn't sound like, I don't know, it didn't sound like polished or like professional jams or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you could hear, however many people were in the room playing instruments or whatever, you could feel the connection in the room, and you can hear it. I would record all of it. There would even be people just hanging out in there while that happened. And the vibe in the room was always cool because there was this non-verbal, abstract communication happening between people, but it was still, even though there was no words and there was no visual, it was happening.
Yeah.
And people, I think, need that. Yeah. I mean, but it also brings me to the thought of, can you think of anything more like childishly self-affirming than playing in a band in a bar? Like, think about like now, where people go to shows now for an experience.
Yeah.
They're not just showing up at a bar because, hey, there might be a band there. I mean, I like that kind of thing, but the majority of people don't.
No.
So when I really think about it, I feel like really childish when I play a show and like it feels like being a little kid, and it's like, okay, everybody, you're going to stop doing what you're doing and you're going to pay attention to me, like talking about my feelings.
Yeah, and especially when you did, like, I played a lot of cover shows, and that was every time that we played an original. You know, it's just like,
right.
know, everybody jam the brakes. We have one that we have to say, you know?
Right.
Luckily, like, the band that I played in that did that, the original sounded very similar to the songs that we were covering, or we just had enough drunk friends to like keep the energy up and like, you know, be enough to, you know, keep the energy going, I guess. But no, I like just that childish
look at me.
that look at me.
But it's got to be more than that, right? Because that's not like you would, like I said before, you would stop doing it.
Yes. I don't know. Like,
we've played enough shitty shows.
A big part of me, though, is the spectacle of it, though. Like, as much as I don't want it to be, the ridiculousness sometimes is what I like the audience to see. Like, how many times have I come to you with like just outlandish ideas? Like, one time I was like, okay, we're gonna do a Pink Floyd tribute show, but we're gonna just do The Wall, and we're actually going to
final cut.
We're gonna do the we're gonna do The Wall on stage. Like, we're gonna do the whole stage show. It's like, okay, you're gonna build all the blocks yourself. And what? No, oh man, can we like just get like one big piece of cardboard or something? Like I like, you know, I was going to write a science fiction rock opera at one point and like get a bunch of, you know, different people. Like when I went to school for music, and I was going to, my like final thesis was going to be like instrumentation and scoring, and I was going to do my solo album release party, the album before Villain, but I was going to do it with all the students from CSI, and like score like the guitar ensemble to do one song, do like, you know, like the chamber music thing to do another song. So as much as I want to say, I think I just like bullshitted you for the last half hour, because I think deep down you were my therapist today. Like
there you go.
I want the spectacle, you know, because
The
like
spectacle's cool. Most people want the spectacle.
yeah, like just the larger than life thing. Just because it's like, what can we do? Joe and I about 10 years ago did a Flaming Lips tribute show. And that in itself, like the place, it took 3 hours to clean up afterwards.
Oh, and my pedals are still broken.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we should explain. We got to do this with a bunch of our friends, which was awesome. People that we don't. Well, I hadn't gotten to play with. You had been in bands.
I was bands with Joe, Mark. That was the first time I played with Chris, but
right.
Yeah.
And Chris really like both. We're all like big Flaming Lips fans, but Chris and I like really share a very big love of Flaming Lips, and he really went all out, like trying to make it. He channeled the concept of what a live Flaming Lips show was through our own means.
He just didn't have the Zorb. Like he had the large hands, he had the like flashlights on the helmet. All the props were there.
Right.
Your wife dressed up. Well, no, she wasn't the
Cassie,
robot, right?
yes.
Oh, Cassie. Yeah, she was the robot.
Yeah. There's the pink robots. And also, so Chris, instead of like confetti out of cannons, he had worked at a college and he got all of like the shredded paper.
There's definitely some bank accounts floating around somewhere on those.
And he just like this club, which is, I don't know, what would you say, 100 to 120 people tops if it was full.
But it was packed. It was overpacked. Like,
yeah. And the floor afterwards was like, I would say, I don't know, it had to be about 1.5 feet high of that like
shredded paper, not even confetti.
Which, by the way, leaves lots of little fine dust everywhere and totally like fucked up my pedals.
Yeah. That was definitely one of the best shows that I've ever played, and yes, because of the spectacle. Because it was sloppy. It was very sloppily done.
But everybody the audience was sharing an experience with us, and they were having a great time.
And you know what? It was actually kind of perfect timing, because every Halloween in Staten Island, well, not recently, but you know, a while ago, we did tribute shows. And that year it was Rage Against the Machine and Flamin' Lips. So it was like, here's the war, now the war is over, let's all celebrate, you know? So it was like, you had the catharsis, and now here's like the elation, you know?
Right. And Rage was Chris King.
Chris
King from the
was,
Seconds was in the and it was Honey, right?
It was Honey. It was Honey.
So that was a band that I was in also, but I was like more of the Pat Smear of Honey.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll get into
We're going to do a Honey episode. We'll get Mike in here.
Yes. That was a great show. Chris King, it was the bass player in the Seconds.
Yes. But yeah, we could talk all day just on why we love to do this and why we still do it. And we didn't even get into Red Vox. We're going to have a whole episode on them and stuff, because that is the band that we are currently in. Listeners of this podcast probably are here because of that. But what I wanted to do this episode is just talk about what you're going to expect from this show. We are going to talk a lot like this, reminiscing about old times, or like why we find joy in this, like different little stories of even before we even played in bands. But the episodes are going to be all over the place. We're going to do episodes like album analysis, where we're going to talk about different albums that we've just identified ourselves with, or we just found fascinating, and we're just going to do deep dives in them, you know, talk about the personnel on them, the production on them, how things were done. We're also going to talk about bodies of work of a single artist. and like say David Bowie, who's had many different types of phases in his career. We're going to do show and tell episodes. Show and tell episodes could go one of two ways. I mentioned this a little bit before, where a show and tell episode would be something that I have ownership with, like a band that I most likely discovered as an individual and became obsessed with it and wanted to share it with other people. Or a show and tell could also be if somebody who's listening to this wants to share with us their band. You could email us your stuff and like we'll listen to it and see like the great stuff that you guys have too.
Yeah, I would love that aspect. Or bands that you guys know that maybe not a lot of other people know, that maybe we can look at their albums, and also maybe we can talk to the people who helped them make those albums. And because I'm sure there's going to be something that I'm going to love and Bill's going to love, and we can probably like take a deep dive in on a song that maybe a whole lot of people would never otherwise get to like really hear about.
Yeah, because you guys are going to get us into a lot of music too. And you could do that by emailing us at rockpopspod@gmail.com. That's rockpopspod@gmail.com. And your band submissions, the bands that you found submissions, anything else that you want. If you want to ask us any questions, we'll do Q&A episodes too. Just anything, what our favorite foods are, if you want to ask that. I don't know at the moment.
Mine is buffalo wings. Sorry, It's just right there. I'm gonna give it to you.
I had Jose Tejas chicken tonight.
Did you?
It went down. I don't know. I was not happy with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you go to the actual Jose Tejas is a great like Tex-Mex restaurant in New Jersey. There's like 2 or 3 of them that like defies all odds of restaurants.
Yeah.
Like it's been in existence for like 30 something years.
Yes.
And it is always packed. You could go on a weeknight and it is packed.
The only time that I get a table immediately is at 11 a.m. on a Wednesday.
I didn't even know they were open that
I was working shift work at the time, and like we had friends that were just like, let's just go then. Like we all had off on a random day. So,
right.
But yeah, so those are the show and tell episodes, and that's our email. I'll throw it out again at the end of the episode. What we're also going to do a lot of is this biographical stuff. We're going to talk about our previous bands. We're going to have guests from those bands on just to reminisce a little bit about it. Maybe the listeners, you could identify with these bands as well. We're going to just talk about different stories, like of wild things that happened, or not even mild things that happened too. Along with the biographies, we're going to talk about great shows that we've experienced, like that Flamin' Lips show, or other awesome things that we've just played with in the 20 plus years that we've been in bands together, or like the worst shows that we've ever been in. And then there's also going to be one-off shows of just random things that like we're going to get creative. Some of them are going to be like cover songs that are better than the originals.
I like that.
Yeah, right?
That's cool.
Bands that record an album after a long hiatus.
Oh yeah,
one thing that comes to mind is like Ben Folds 5 didn't come out with an album in about 15 years, and then they had songs, and I can't even think of the name of it right now, but it was great. Like a lot of times it's not great. They try to like catch the lightning that they did years ago, but sometimes they hit it right on the nose.
New Tears for Fears album.
The New Tears for Fears album too. Post Ultimate album. This is something that we got to get a little creative with. Like it's kind of like a what if episode. Like say if like what would be the album after Let It Be, or what would be the album after In Utero?
Can we do that for the next episode? That's cool.
Oh yeah,
right,
absolutely. And gear. This one I'm going to give a lot to Joe. Like he mentioned before, he runs Red Room Studio in Staten Island, and he has a lot of fancy gear that he works with. He's got a lot of secondhand gear that he works with, and creative ways to use it, and amazing, unique sounds. And like what you, as somebody who is a recording engineer yourself, or somebody who likes to do home recording, Joe's going to show you the way to, what to find and how to use it. I don't know.
I'm also looking for any other ideas that other people have would be pretty cool too.
Well, that's the other thing too. You could email us at rockpopspod@gmail.com, and any other ideas that you have, we would love to take them. And I don't know. That's all I have for this one.
All right, cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, thank you very much. Until next time, thank you for listening to this. I'm Bill Gagliardi. With me is Joe Pecora. And I don't know, do we have a sign-off yet? If you guys have a fancy sign-off, please email us at rockpopspod@gmail.com. If not, then see you later.